What if I told you that in just 2 years, the Green Bay Packers went from losing Aaron Rodgers to looking like the most dangerous young team in the NFL? This is the same franchise that already gave us Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back. And now, after most people thought their window had slammed shut, the Packers might have pulled off the fastest rebuild in NFL history. Think about it. Rodgers leaves, the veterans are gone, and everyone assumes Green Bay is heading for years in the wilderness. But instead, they hit on Jordan Love. They stacked draft classes full of instant starters, and then they pulled off one of the biggest blockbuster trades in league history to land Micah Parsons. In just a handful of off seasons, the Packers turned what should have been a painful rebuild into a terrifying Super Bowl contender. This is how the Green Bay Packers pulled off the fastest rebuild in NFL history, and why the rest of the league should be terrified. Of course, the standout player on this 2025 Green Bay Packers roster is quarterback Jordan Love, who arrived in a very typical Green Bay fashion back in 2020. At a time when Aaron Rodgers was pleading with the Green Bay Packers front office to give him the weapons he needed to win his second Super Bowl, fans were stunned to see the team use their 2020 first-round draft pick on Jordan Love, a project quarterback out of Utah State. Each of Aaron Rodgers' last 3 healthy seasons had seen him throw for over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, with single-digit interceptions in each, so it was a surprise to say the least. However, this has always been a team that takes future-proofing at the quarterback position very seriously. Aaron Rodgers himself sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years before he was handed the keys. Jordan Love got the same treatment, taking over the Green Bay Packers in 2023. Fresh off an 8-9 record in 2022 that dropped the team to 3rd place in the division. It was time for the next era of Green Bay Packers football to begin. Obviously, the quarterback position was sorted, but there were several key offensive veterans who departed with Aaron Rodgers. Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, Robert Tonyan, and Mercedes Lewis may have all been getting on in age, but they all played a significant role in 2022. And, more importantly, represented offensive continuity over Aaron Rodgers' impressive later years. A new influx of talent to grow with Jordan Love was desperately needed, so general manager Brian Gutekunst got to work. Helpfully, he had some additional draft capital from Aaron Rodgers' trade to New York to utilize. Supporting his inexperienced quarterback was a clear priority with those draft picks, using his 2 second-round selections on tight end Luke Musgrave and wide receiver Jaden Reed, before dipping back into the tight end market in round 3 to select Tucker Kraft. Another wide receiver entered the fray in round 5 in the form of Dontavion Wicks. As things stand at the beginning of the 2025 NFL season, all 4 of these pass catchers are on the roster and contributing in various ways. With veteran running back Aaron Jones still going strong, and sophomore wideouts Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson both looking promising, the Packers now had an intriguing offensive core for Love to develop with. That 2023 draft class was kicked off by the selection of edge defender Lucas Van Ness, who was joined on the defensive line by 4th-rounder Colby Wooden. Again, both of these draftees are playing significant roles as we enter this 2025 season, with 6th-rounder Carl Brooks also playing a supportive role along the interior of the defensive line. Overall, this 2023 class was a rock-solid cohort, giving the Green Bay Packers a whopping 13 young rookies to enter the new era with. To counteract this wave of young talent, Tarvarius Moore and Jonathan Owens headlined a sensible veteran free agent class, which mostly focused on the defensive side of the ball. As you might expect, this young Green Bay Packers side did experience some teething issues to open up the 2023 campaign. 7 touchdowns and just 1 interception from Jordan Love over the first 3 games showed how bright the future could be. However, his failure to complete above 56% of his passes in any one of those 3 games hinted at some underlying issues, which became the standout story for the first half of the season, with Love tossing 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions over his next 6 games, and losing 5 of them. There were moments of magic, for sure, but the lowlights were outweighing them. Love failed to record a PFF passing grade over 70 in any of his first 8 games that year, leading many to question his viability as a replacement for the great Aaron Rodgers. But then, all of a sudden, everything changed. In Week 11 against the Los Angeles Chargers, Jordan Love surpassed the 300-yard mark for the first time, adding on 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions to lead his team to a 23-20 victory. The Packers were 4-6 at the time and not viewed as a team with playoff hopes. However, in defeating the Los Angeles Chargers, Jordan Love had seemingly flipped a switch, tossing 8 touchdowns and just 1 interception over the final 8 games of the year, going 6-2 over that stretch to lead his team to the unlikeliest of playoff berths. For most franchises, losing a Hall of Fame quarterback means years in the wilderness. For Green Bay, it took just 1 season for Jordan Love to prove this rebuild was on track to be the fastest we've ever seen. To say that the season was a story of 2 halves would be an understatement, with Love going from an unpredictable liability to arguably the very best quarterback in the league over that final stretch. All of a sudden, the Green Bay offense was feared, with rookie Jayden Reed showing out as a potential star of the future with a team-leading 793 yards and 8 touchdowns. Behind him, 674 yards from Romeo Doubs, 581 from Dontavion Wicks, and 350 from both rookie tight ends gave Packers fans even more reason for optimism. Gutekunst's commitment to giving the offense a youth-fueled overhaul had paid off big time, and his reward was what looked like a 3rd straight franchise quarterback for the Packers organization. That's alright for some. Defensively, Rashawn Gary returned from an ACL tear to lead the team with 9 sacks. He destroyed the New Orleans Saints in Week 3 with 3 sacks in a narrow 18-17 victory, and was rewarded shortly after with a massive 4-year, $107 million contract extension. It's not often you see massive deals handed out mid-season, but GM Brian Gutekunst showed his quality by locking up a defensive cornerstone at a time when many in the fan base were calling for him to blow it all up. Gutekunst also deserves praise for his decision to ship off cornerback Rasul Douglas mid-season to collect a 2024 third-round pick, continuing his trend of stockpiling picks to bring in more young talent. To make matters sweeter, the Packers didn't miss a beat without Douglas on the roster, going 7-3 after his departure. Before he could utilize his hefty haul of draft picks though, Gutekunst had a playoff game to watch, because their late-season surge had snuck the Packers into the postseason as the NFC's 7th seed, going up against the 2nd-seeded Dallas Cowboys, who were on a 16-game win streak in their own building. Nobody gave this young Green Bay side much of a chance. How wrong we all were. A packed AT&T Stadium could not believe their eyes as Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers offense delivered a near-perfect performance. They gave up no turnovers and no sacks on the day, as Love completed 16 of his 21 pass attempts for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns. Veteran running back Aaron Jones had 118 yards and 3 scores on the ground, and it was 3 youngsters in Doubs, Musgrave, and Wicks who reeled in the touchdowns through the air, all at 24 years or younger. This wasn't supposed to happen. Most rebuilding teams don't even make the playoffs, let alone humiliate a Cowboys team on a 16-game home win streak. That's the difference between a rebuild and a rebuild at record speed. The Cowboys put up some points late to save a bit of embarrassment, but Green Bay walked away with an emphatic 48-32 win. The youth movement had passed their first high-pressure test in style, and they almost got the job done in the divisional round again, pushing the top-seeded San Francisco 49ers to the limit in a 24-21 loss. Obviously, it was a shame to fall short of the conference championship game, but for these Packers and their fans, there was a lot to be optimistic about. Having exceeded expectations in his first year as a starter, Jordan Love was rewarded over the 2024 offseason with a $220 million 4-year extension, which tied for the highest average annual value at the time. Of course, when dedicating so much money to the quarterback, savings must be made elsewhere, and they came in the form of several significant veteran departures. All-Pro left tackle David Bakhtiari and fan favorite Aaron Jones were both released, with John Runyon, Darnell Savage, and Jonathan Owens also departing. To help make up for the loss, Brian Gutekunst got busy in free agency and found a few players that would ultimately go on to completely reshape the potential upside of this team. most notably the arrival of running back Josh Jacobs and safety Xavier McKinney, who would both earn Pro Bowl selections in their first season as Packers. Jacobs was brought in to replace Aaron Jones, giving the team a much more physical and imposing run game. And it worked. In 2023, Green Bay ranked 15th in the league when it came to rushing the ball, averaging 112.1 yards per game. With Jacobs helping Love out in 2024, the Packers tacked on over 30 yards per game on the ground to rank 5th with 146.8 rushing yards per game. That is a significant difference, and a huge asset for Jordan Love as a quarterback and Matt LaFleur as an offensive coordinator. So Jacobs certainly has to go down as a huge free agency hit for Brian Gutekunst. Moves like this are what separate a normal rebuild from something historic. In just 2 off-seasons, the Packers were already filling holes with Pro Bowl talent, as does Xavier McKinney, who's picked up by Goody on a 4-year, $68 million contract to become the team's top safety. McKinney instantly took over as the leader of the secondary, becoming the first player since 1970 to log an interception in his first 5 games with the team. He would collect 8 in total, en route to a first-team All-Pro selection. So he certainly goes down as another huge hit for the Packers GM. In the 2024 NFL Draft, the Packers yet again had a ton of picks to use, 11 in total. The offensive line was fortified in round 1 with the selection of Jordan Morgan, before Edgerrin Cooper and Javon Bullard arrived in round 2. Both have earned themselves starting roles as sophomores in 2025. 4th-round pick Evan Williams has also worked his way into the starting lineup at free safety alongside Xavier McKinney, while 3rd-round linebacker Tyron Harper is currently working into the rotation behind Quay Walker. By collecting so many draft picks, Brian Gutekunst is giving himself more opportunities at finding useful starters and depth pieces at low costs. And when you have a strike rate like Gutty, this can be an incredibly effective method. Unfortunately, any hopes of carrying momentum from the incredible end to the 2023 season were hampered by an MCL injury to Jordan Love in Week 1 of the 2024 season, in a 34-29 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. Love would return with a 389-yard, 4-touchdown outing in Week 4, but his 3 interceptions helped Minnesota get the win. The impact of the MCL injury would linger well into the season, contributing to a slight decline in production for Love, who passed for 3,389 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Still, that's not bad at all for a man who missed 2 games. Jaden Reed once again topped the receivers with 857 yards, this time followed by Tucker Kraft, who broke out as a sophomore tight end with 707 yards and 7 touchdowns. Obviously, Josh Jacobs was a beast on the ground with his 1,329 yards and 15 touchdowns, while Rashawn Gary and Xavier McKinney led the defense with the team's most sacks and interceptions respectively. There were some fantastic performances all season long for this up-and-coming Green Bay Packers team, but an unfortunate trend had put a blemish on the season. Nobody was doubting that this was a good team, but 5 of their 6 losses came in the division, and the 6th was against the Philadelphia Eagles. This team clearly had a ceiling, and would need some additions to help them overcome the best teams in the NFL, and therefore take that next step up into Super Bowl contender status. This was proven when Matt LaFleur's men struggled mightily in the wildcard round, putting up just 10 points against the eventual champion Philadelphia Eagles, losing to them for the 2nd time that season. 3 interceptions on the day for Jordan Love left a sour taste in the mouth to end the season, but the fact of the matter was that Green Bay had improved to post 11 wins in a season where their quarterback was hampered by injury. They were close, and now it was time to find the finishing touches to make them a powerhouse in the NFC. Thankfully, Brian Gutekunst continued his good run of off-seasons to do exactly that. Heading into the 2025 offseason, Green Bay had a couple of key areas they needed to improve. They needed to find one difference maker for each side of the ball who could help them take that next step. The first of those came in the 2025 NFL Draft, when the Green Bay Packers used their 1st-round selection on a wide receiver for the first time since 2002. The lucky wideout to break that outrageously long streak was Matthew Golden, who helped the Texas Longhorns reach a college football playoff semifinal in his final year in 2024. Golden racked up 987 yards over that season, including a blow-up 149-yard outing against Arizona State in the quarterfinal, where he scored a remarkable touchdown on 4th and 13 in overtime to keep the game alive. Boasting a 4.29 40-yard dash, speed is a strong component of Golden's game. He is more than capable of taking the top off the defense, but his acceleration and speed in and out of his breaks are what make him such an exciting prospect, with the potential to make him a dominant receiver in the league. That is exactly what Green Bay needs, after their wide receivers failed to come up big for Jordan Love when he needed them most down the stretch. From Week 17 to the wildcard round against Philadelphia, no Packers wide receiver posted more than 58 yards, with the team's best effort in the wildcard round coming from Jaden Reed, who posted just 46 yards on the day. Love needed a receiver he could trust to come up big for him, and none of his 2024 receivers met that need, which certainly played a part in the team's loss. In Golden, Packers fans are hoping that Love has a speedy wideout who can get open with ease and become the alpha option to help this unit be properly unleashed. So, with Golden arriving to hopefully be the missing piece on offense, what would Brian Gutekunst do to bolster the defense? Baron Sorrell, Colin Oliver, and Warren Brinson all arrived in the 2025 draft between rounds 4 and 6, with the hopes of developing into good rotational pieces down the line. But that is not exactly going to help push the team over the edge right now. For that, a bigger swing was needed. You bet Goody delivered. On August 28th, 2025, he executed what is arguably one of the biggest trades in NFL history, when trading for the Dallas Cowboys superstar edge defender, Micah Parsons. Having utilized a ton of draft picks on young talent over recent years, Gutekunst saw this as the right moment to package up a couple of future first-round draft picks to get a generational talent in the building. Knowing when your roster is in the right position to make big moves like this is an essential part of being a good general manager, and this trade couldn't have come at a better time. Stockpiling picks, drafting starters, and cashing in for a generational pass rusher, that's not just smart roster building, that's the signature move of the fastest rebuild in NFL history. There was high-end talent on this Packers defensive depth chart, but they were missing that one blue-chip player who could make it all work, while offering that rare disruptive force on the gotta-have-it downs. Heading into the 2025 season, Parsons boasted a 21.1% pressure rate, which was comfortably the highest in the NFL. In just 4 seasons, he's racked up 52.5 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, and 256 total tackles. These have yielded a Defensive Rookie of the Year award, 2 first-team All-Pro selections, a second-team All-Pro selection, and 4 Pro Bowls. In other words, this guy is truly elite, and you don't get many opportunities to bring players like him into the building. Of course, one of the main benefits of having somebody like Parsons in the building is what he offers you from a production perspective. However, the other huge benefit is how he elevates everyone around him. Parsons is the kind of guy that opponents need to divert extra attention to, which will give the rest of the defensive line more preferable matchups to work against. We already saw that playing out in Week 1 of the 2025 season, with Green Bay collecting 4 sacks against a Detroit Lions team who have been renowned for their elite offensive line play over recent years. In limited snaps, Parsons showed just how dominant he can be, and how he unlocks a thrilling new ceiling for this Packers defense as a whole. Elsewhere in the 2025 offseason, Gutekunst paid up for San Francisco 49ers guard Aaron Banks to fortify the offensive line, while bringing in the underrated Nate Hobbs to add some quality to the secondary. This helped to make up for the departures of Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes. In total, these last few years have been a fantastic display of how to manage a roster and build a powerhouse. Brian Gutekunst stockpiled draft picks to usher in a new era with a youth movement, while bringing in savvy signings in free agency and ultimately making the big trade swing when the time was right. Now, with the 2025 campaign underway, it is clear that all of his hard work has paid off, and his Green Bay Packers are looking like a true force to be reckoned with. From Aaron Rodgers leaving, to Jordan Love's rise, to Gutekunst swinging big for Parsons, the Packers didn't just rebuild. They rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. this really might be the fastest rebuild in NFL history. So what do you think, Packers fans? Is this team destined for greatness? And who else deserves credit for this incredible rebuild? Let us know in the comments.